Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are doing my mid-year stats. So we're gonna go through where I am so far with my reading goal and all that kind of good stuff. I'm also gonna tell you what books I've already given 5 stars this year. There's not that many of them, but there are a couple. So let's get into it. So first off, my goal for 2024 was to read 80 books. Normally I make my goals like 100 books and normally I meet that, but I just wanted the freedom to read bigger books and not feel rushed this year. So I made it 80 books and I am 35 books in, so I am 2 books behind schedule, which has been stressing me out a bit. But I was like 7 books behind schedule before June hit, and I've really caught up because I've read more books this month than I think I have the entire year, like monthly, because I've been in a slump, but I'm finally out of it. So that is really good. So I am like halfway, almost halfway to my reading goal for the year. So I wish I was at the halfway mark because we're at the halfway mark of the year, but we are just gonna have to do better in the last 6 months, okay? Then I really like to see kind of my genres, my pages read, all that kind of stuff. So clearly I have done really poorly at any nonfiction because I think I've only read 1 nonfiction book this year, so that was my little 3% up there. It was Invisible Women, which I read it for a class, but it was a book I chose. So I'm counting it towards my reading goal this year. It was good. I highly recommend you pick it up if you're interested in like the data gender bias issue in this country and many other countries. Just being a woman, it's kind of sad. So if you're interested in that, that's the only nonfiction I've read so far. I might read another one, maybe I'll audiobook one, but most likely I will not. I'm a fiction girly at heart, so we're just gonna stay a fiction girly, and that's okay. Next up we have my top genres. This is not all of them because I cut this chart down, but obviously I mainly read fantasy and romance, but I do also read young adult, and some of those young adults are also romance and also fantasy, so that's where that's coming from. Contemporary would be a couple of those romances, I guess, and then mystery thrillers are also some of my favorite types of books. I haven't read a lot of them this year, but I definitely will, because I have quite a few of them on my TBR. So if I'm not reading fantasy and romance, it's a mystery thriller. I haven't really read any horror books this year yet, but I definitely want to, because I also love a good horror book, and I have quite a few of those on my list as well. Next up, we have my formats that I read in. So 80% of that is print. I have started going to the library more. I wish I could like had it in the chart, like which of these were library books and which were physically owned. But it's too much work for me to go back through all of my reads because I didn't make a story graph until like a couple months ago and check which ones I owned. So I just don't have a chart for that. But mainly I do physical, a couple of ebooks. I have some more ebooks I'm gonna read because I really wanna read. After Bridgerton season 3, I think I wanna read them, but I'm probably gonna get them on my Kindle. So those, and then mainly these ebooks are Zodiac Academy, which I finally finished Ruthless Boys this year, but I still need to catch up on actual Zodiac Academy. So that's where most of my like Kindle books are coming from. And then I have a couple of audiobooks. This year I've only listened to 2, I think. I'm on my 3rd one right now. I'm almost halfway through the last book. I think it's the last book in the Crave series, but I've audiobooked all of those. So that's where my audiobook's coming from. I'm very, very picky with audiobooks, because I'm very picky about voices and like who's reading it. That can make or break it for me, you know? So I don't do a ton of audiobooks, but I have done a couple. Then for my most read authors, this is, it says 8 by Sarah J Maas, and that is because at the end of December, beginning of January, I reread all of her books. And so obviously in this year I read, I think I was at like Empire of Storms, maybe Queen of Shadows in January. So I reread all of Crescent City, the new Crescent City, and then like the end of Throne of Glass. So that is why Sarah J Maas is at 8 for this year, because I reread a lot of those books at the beginning of the year in preparation for House of Flame and Shadow. Then we have Tracy Wolff. I've listened to 2 so far this year. It's about to be 3. Then we have Brynn Weaver, because that's the only other series I've read, so there's only 2 for her. But Butcher and Blackbird, Leather and Lark, I've loved those. And then Cassandra Clare, we're at 2. Those were the 2 Dark Artifices books I've read this year, but I I really want to keep reading, so hopefully that number will also go up, because I still haven't done Queen of Air and Darkness because I'm terrified, and then I have to do The Last Hour, so that number again may come go up. But those are kind of the only people that I've read more than one book by them. Literally the only people that I've read more than one book by them. I've been struggling this year. My reading is just, I'm on a struggle bus, but I think I'm finally coming out of that, so we're good. Hopefully we're good. And then for the last graphs, we have my average star ratings, which is a 4. I said at the beginning of the year that I was going to get better about rating books and being harder on books. Yeah, I haven't done that. So 5-star and 4-star, 5-star and 3-star are kind of the same. Everything else just gets 4 stars. I don't really give out 3 stars that often, and I probably should be giving more 3 stars if I'm being honest, but I just feel bad. And I haven't had any books that really wowed me. Like, I loved them. I've given less 5 stars this year than I normally would, so that I have been picky with, which is good. But that means I've just had a lot of 4 stars. Like, way too many 4 stars. But at least I haven't, at least I haven't read anything I hated, because I haven't given anything 2 or 1. And that's the goal, really, is to never have to read something that I hate. I just know what I like. So I'm giving out a lot of 4 stars. And then we have the books that I have actually given 5 stars this year. We'll start out with the one that I read through the library, so I don't have my copy of it. And that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. It's her newest book. It takes place in Michigan again? Pretty sure. But I loved this. She's a children's librarian, and I just got my master's in library science, so that really sucked me in. Essentially, her fiance breaks up with her for his ex, and so she moves in with his ex's new ex-boyfriend, because the ex broke up with him as well. And so they end up together. So their exes are getting married, and then they end up living together and, falling in love. And they are complete opposites of each other. But it was so fun. Every single time Emily Henry writes a new book, I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite Emily Henry book. So I really enjoyed Funny Story. That's why I get 5 stars. I was kicking my feet. Okay, I do that with all of her books. I don't know if I've ever given her book not 5 stars. Maybe, but I loved Funny Story, so that is why that was one of my 5-star reads this year. Then the next 5-star read was the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. I love Holly Jackson. I will read anything that she writes. This was a good one. Basically, her mother disappeared with her when she was a baby. She was left in the car, and she starts this documentary series with a group who's doing a documentary about her mother, because it's one of these huge cases everybody knows about. And then her mother just decides to reappear, and things go downhill from there, where they're trying to figure out what actually happened to her mom, where her mom has been. She doesn't really trust her mom, because she's a daddy's girl at heart, and she just thinks that something's up and she's lying. I loved it. I loved it. Okay, I always love Holly Jackson books. It's one of those YA books that you're just obsessed. Okay, so I really enjoyed this one. I definitely recommend you pick it up. Read anything Holly Jackson writes. All of them are good, okay? But I really liked this one. Next, obviously, we have House of Flame and Shadow. I know a lot of people did not like this book, but I thought it was perfect because, reminder guys, it's a Crescent City book. It's not any other book, it's a Crescent City book. And I think this was the perfect Crescent City ending. I'm sure we're gonna get another book, but I really enjoyed this. I cried, I screamed. I have a reading vlog for this, and there were a lot of emotions, but I think it was the perfect way to wrap up the trilogy of Crescent City, Bryson Hunt's series. So I did really enjoy House of Flame and Shadow. I don't really care what anyone else says. It was a Crescent City book, okay? But I gave it 5 stars because we stan, Even though Crescent City is my least favorite of all of the series, it was still good, okay? It was still good. Next, we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. Like everyone else, I ate this series up. And I read Divine Rivals like right before this came out because I was really late to the game on that one. And it would just, I cried. It was just beautiful. The writing is beautiful. I loved their love story. I loved Iris. So I gave this 5 stars, 10 out of 10. If you don't know, this is basically the second in a duology where they are enemies, but they have typewriters that magically send letters to each other, and they go to be war correspondents for this war between these 2 gods who had been sleeping, and they fall in love, obviously. This is also YA, so again, and this is one of those books that like you read a YA romance and you're like, see, you don't need all the other things for it to still be a good romance. Like YA romances sometimes hit just as hard as these like adult romances do. This is case in point, okay? Case in point. I loved this book. So definitely, if you haven't, if you're like one of the people who have not read Divine Rivals yet, you definitely should. It's 10 out of 10. And you're lucky that you don't have to wait after Divine Rivals for the next book anymore if you haven't read them yet, because I had to wait, and that was soul crushing. And then the last 5-star read that I have so far this year was Butcher and Blackbird. This is the first in the Ruinous Love trilogy, where both of our main characters are serial killers who other bad people / serial killers. So I've been rewatching Dexter. Like, I've been back in my Dexter era right when I picked this up. So it just, that's probably part of the reason I gave it 5 stars, because I'm just in that vibe right now. And I thought it was cute. They have like, he basically like in the very beginning meets her because he's going to somebody that she's already, and they meet up. She's like in a sticky situation. He helps her out. And they are like, oh my gosh, someone else who's just like me. And then they start having this thing where every year they meet up on a mission to take someone out. And so basically this book goes through like multiple years. I think like 5 years, because a lot of it like skips forward to their next meeting. They don't live in the same city. But I loved it. There's a second book. I didn't like the second book as much. I didn't give it 5 stars. But this very first one was so good. I loved Sloane Rowan. So I did give it 5 stars. It was cute. I loved it. Now, I know, check the trigger warnings, because there are some gory, gross things that happen. But I think it's worth the read. And with that is kind of where I'm standing so far this year. I need to catch up a little bit. I'm 2 books behind. I'm currently listening to the last Crave book, and I'm currently reading Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Also, I normally don't read more than 1 book at once, but I'm also reading Well of Ascension, but because that's so big, I'm like only 100 pages in. It doesn't look big, but the words are tiny, and it's like 600 pages. I'm taking a short break from that for Not in Love, so I'm also reading Will of Ascension. So I have a handful of things. Like, I have so much going on, but I am hoping to just keep going, because I've read probably 7 books in June, and before that I was reading like 4 a month. So I am really working hard to catch back up on my goal, and I finally found the like desire to read again that I was missing for like 3 months. So I'm hoping we can reach our goals, and we will do another one of these little stats catch-ups at the end of the year where I will show you what my end goal was. And I like keeping up with this on Storygraph. If you're interested in your stats and things for reading, Storygraph is 10 times better than this. I am a Goodreads user. I love Goodreads. But I always have to remind myself to go back and add it to Storygraph, because it will give you all the graphs I showed you, and I think that is so cool. I also keep up with that kind of thing in my reading journal though, so I have it everywhere. Okay, so that will be all for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.